evening, the 18th of March, 2020. The case count remains 7. All 7 cases are being managed in isolation and all are in stable condition. We are conducting the contact tracing. The contacts have risen to 381. None of the contacts yet have been confirmed as suspected case, and all of them are being followed up and are doing well. Team, this is the contacts for the first 6 cases that were detected. The single case that was seen yesterday, adding up to 7. The contact tracers have gone out. They are yet to come back to enable us to receive their report. So by close of today, I believe the total number of contacts that are being followed would increase. Thank you very much.
Dr. Medisa Akore, thank you for that quick update on case count, case management, and contact tracing. He will join me later to respond to any further questions that may concern his area. May I remind you that the website address that will give regular updates every 6 hours, should there be a change in this, will be ghanahealthservice.org/COVID-19/. And we would like to applaud our colleagues in the media for working with us in consonance with the protocols that we laid out for reporting on case count, case management, and contact tracing. I want to invite the Ghana Immigration Service to explain to us and to formally give an update to the country on the enforcement of the travel restrictions or the travel advisory that was issued earlier this week. Ms. Lord of Fourier-Frifa, please join me. Deputy Controller General in charge of Operations and Command Post. The travel restrictions were to kick in at 1 p.m. GMT yesterday. What is the story so far, sir?
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and good evening to everybody. Yes, Honorable Minister, from our point, the directives given by His Excellency the President kicked in at 1 p.m. yesterday. What we have done so far is to advise all our controls to enforce the ban strictly. But all persons traveling from countries that have recorded 200 cases and over are to be refused entry, and that is what we are doing. We are only admitting foreigners coming back or returning who have resident permits. And even that, their details are being taken and being shared with the Ghana Health Service response team. So far, as of yesterday, on the 16th March, we refused 2 Italians entry who were traveling in on Air France. In fact, we did not allow them to disembark because we normally have the travel advice from the airlines. We screen it and see who is on board before they come. So the 2 Italians were noted on the Air France flight, and the team went in, the joint team of the Ghana Immigration Service and the Port Health authorities went on board and explained the situation to them, and they were refused and they were not allowed to come back. They returned with the flight. Yesterday, 17th of March, 24 Chinese were refused entry, and also 1 German, also under the same circumstances, with a kick-in of the travel ban at 1 p.m. This morning, there is an incident in Abidjan. The airport is closed due to an incident on the tarmac, so flights were being diverted to Ghana. In consultation with the civil aviation, all those flights were refused landing and sent back. 1 Ethiopian airline flights that landed without permission, the passengers were not allowed to disembark. They were refueled and they continued on their journey. The flight statistics that we have indicate that there has been a drastic drop in passenger inflow, especially on the major airlines. So for yesterday, for instance, British Airways, which would normally bring in about 350 passengers, brought in 140. KLM would normally bring in about 450 daily, brought in 128. Air Portugal, which would normally bring in about 150, brought in 12. Kenya Airways, which would normally bring in about 120, brought in 66. Emirates Airlines, which would normally bring in 380, brought in 174. Today, as at this morning, the figures from especially Kenya Airways and Emirates, which come quite early, and South Africa Airlines, recorded more reduced numbers. Kenya Airways, for example, brought in only 26 passengers. Emirates brought in 93. South Africa Airlines from Washington, which would normally come with about 300 passengers, brought in 36, and most of these are Ghanaians. Ethiopia Airlines brought in 128 as against 250, which is the average. The restrictions, the travel ban is not only being enforced at the airline, also at our land borders. We operate 45 land borders, the major ones being Aflao, Elubu, and Paga, and then other minor posts. The ban is also being strictly enforced there. Yesterday, Aflao refused entry to a Nigerian who was traveling in the country from Nigeria. But our checks, the checks we do as your travel movement prior to your appearance at the border, the 14 days, it was shown that he had traveled from Korea 4 days earlier to Nigeria and was coming in. So we applied it. Even though he was coming from Nigeria, we knew that he had come from Korea, which is in excess of the 200. Today, 3 foreigners have been refused entry again at the Aflao airport. 1 German, yes, Aflao border post. 1 German and 2 Australians. Lome operates a virtually visa-free visa regime with many countries. So a lot of nationals can come through there easily. So that is why Aflao and the other entry points, Akanu, etc., are tight on controls. So the German and 2 Australians, who also fall within the 200+ cases recorded in their countries, were also refused entry. Today, there was an incident on South Africa Island. We don't know the status yet. A Ghanaian female who complained of dizziness on arrival was referred to the health authorities. We could not be sure of what it was, so we had to take that action. The 2 passengers who sat with her were also referred to the health authorities and isolated and are still going observation. So, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, the travel ban, as at yesterday, is in force 1 p.m., and we are enforcing it very strictly. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure we would invite you to help us answer further questions as they come up. Colleagues, these travel restrictions have become necessary, as I'm sure you are aware, because our first 7 cases have been proven to be imported cases. And that is why these restrictions have been imposed. It's not because generally we don't like people coming within our borders. We are generally an open country, but under the current circumstances, we've had to impose these restrictions to protect the population. Now, let me give you a quick update on the passing of the new legislation and the executive instrument. But maybe before then, as part of the President's address to the nation on Sunday night, he instructed the local government ministry to put in place measures to ensure that at the local level, the necessary precautions were being taken in a number of places, including our markets. The Honorable Haji Alima Mahama is here with us. Let me kindly invite her to join us and give us an update of how these regulations are being applied on the ground. And then later, the Transport Minister would also tell us what's happening in the transport space. For those who are having to go into self-quarantine, I think from this evening onwards, hard copies of the self-quarantine guides are also to be distributed to them if they are cleared by immigration to go into self-quarantine. We'll do well to share copies with you so that you can also, for the purposes of edifying the general public, bring them up to speed. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Honorable Ministers, Health Sector, Immigration, Media, all present here. Good afternoon. Yeah. Following the President's announcement on measures taken by his government to contain and prevent the spread of COVID-19, the Ministry of Local Government, as you are aware, was directed to coordinate with the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies to enhance the conditions of hygiene in markets across the country. And following this announcement, the ministry issued directive to all regional coordinating councils and MMDAs to put measures in place to prevent the community spread. And the ministry directed the following. Regional ministers, in collaboration with the regional health service departments, were requested to, as a matter of urgency, set up and chair the public health emergency committees. MMDCs were also directed to chair these committees in their respective jurisdiction, and where the committees were not in place, to ensure that they were set up accordingly. The PHAC is to operationalize, monitor the implementation of the directives within the area of their jurisdiction, and also, for our purpose, focus on the marketplaces, lorry parks, and other public places to prevent the spread. Members of the PHAC include the MMDCE as chairperson, the district security committee members, directors of health, education, information service, NADMO coordinator, environmental health, community water sanitation, and the National Ambulance Service, with the district coordinating director as the secretary. And they are supposed to collaborate with the following in the respective districts. That's the health management teams, the district health management teams, the National Commission on Civic Education, Department of Social Welfare and Community Development, traditional authorities, faith-based organizations, transport unions, market associations, the District Environmental Protection Agency, assembly members, and all other relevant stakeholders. They were also directed to set up public sensitization teams under the overall guidance of the Public Health Emergency Committee to undertake public health education on COVID-19 in all places public places within their jurisdictions, especially marketplaces, lorry parks, using their mobile vans, gongs, and any other means available to improve their information outreach. And the focus was on improving hygiene standards through regular cleanup and cleansing. These teams, we said, should be led by the Information Service Department staff, and the team should include the environmental health officers, the health directorate staff, staff of Department of Social Welfare and Community Development, NADMO, and youth employment agencies. We also requested MMDCs to negotiate for free time on FM stations in their respective districts to broadcast messages and also educate the public on the preventive measures. So I will entreat you to also spread this message for FM stations to provide some free time for this messaging. MMDAs too should enforce bylaws on food safety, environmental sanitation, hygiene, and also on entertainment and other outdoor activities. They are to ensure the availability of hand washing facilities with running water and hand sanitizers, advantage points in the markets and all other public places. All regional coordinating councils were encouraged to coordinate and ensure compliance with the directives and to submit bi-weekly reports on the implementation status. Following these directives, I received reports every day from the MMDAs. And that's at 2 o'clock today. I'm just giving a summary of some of the things they've done. They've established the public health emergency committees, and they have set up public sensitization teams under the overall guidance of the public health emergency committees. They have undertaken stakeholder engagements, and they have commenced the public sensitization and education on preventive measures and good hygiene practices to curtail community spread of the COVID-19. MMDAs have commenced the distribution of flyers and posters as well as playing of jingles in local languages on local FM stations to help in the education and sensitization of the public on the virus. Some MMDAs have their own information centers. They are using that to channel the messages. If you go to Medina Market right now, you see that they are using their information service and all the messages coming out on this. They have also taken the members of the various committees through the various, with the support of the health director, through the various practices, proper hand washing techniques and procedures, so that these members will also further educate and sensitize people in the markets, lorry parks, and other public places in their respective assemblies. Assemblies such as Agotome, Ziope, Ketu North in the Volta region, Achias in the Eastern region, BI West in the Western North region, Wasa East in Western region have, in collaboration with their respective health directors, increased the number and presence of health staff at vantage points. They know where it's critical, so they have done some kind of relocation to have the presence of staff at the critical points. And in some places, like in Secondary Takoradi Metropolitan, they have decongested their offices to help contain and manage the spread. They've also acquired and supplied and installed Veronica buckets, hand washers, sanitizers, nose masks, and other protective gears at vantage points in the markets, and in some cases in the lorry parks and other public areas in their jurisdiction. MMDAs have also acquired gun thermometers and located them at public places, including their own offices, to take people's temperatures as they enter the premises. Hopefully, when they suspect a case, they will report. Some assembly members have also commenced monitoring and enforcement of directives that were provided at the industries, hotels, supermarkets, nightclubs, and private health facilities with the support of security agencies to ensure that these organizations comply with the various directives. They've also communicated with traditional authorities and various religious entities to ensure that they comply with the directives, and they've set up task forces to monitor some of these activities. Assemblies are monitoring and enforcing the suspension of all public gatherings, especially funerals, religious services, festivals, political rallies, and so on in their jurisdictions. The ministry itself is also taking some precautionary measures, and if you visit the ministry, we are restricting visits now, and we've also have our gun thermometers to check temperatures, and we've also made available hand sanitizers at vantage points in the office premises. And the ministry has also visited some assemblies and markets, especially within the Greater Accra area, to ascertain the level of compliance with the directives. And we've also decongested our offices and encouraging the district assembly to do so. Some of them have set up tents in their compounds to enforce social distancing. And the ministry is monitoring the situation, and we are still receiving reports. Every day we are getting reports on updates. We've set up a platform with all MMDAs, and every day they are sending us pictures. We have a whole lot. We've put the Minister for Information on the platform so that he will see what they are doing, sending pictures, doing everything. So we'll keep monitoring, and we'll continue to update you on compliance to the directives and measures put in place to prevent community spread of COVID-19, inshallah. Thank you.
Hadia, thank you for the update. One of the significant areas where a lot of Ghanaians usually are clustered is on our transport platforms, buses, trotros, at the transport terminals. The President instructed the Minister for Transport to commence some steps to ensure that we could extend all the measures that have been taken to our transport system. The Honorable Kweku Foresiama is here. I want to invite him to give us a quick update. Honorable, for you are required to use a sanitizer before.
I know. I appreciate the directive. I think the media is capturing it. That the transport minister used the sanitizer before. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Minister for Local Government, Heads of Department, the media. Thank you, and you are welcome. Good evening. Like the Minister for Information rightly said, following the directive from His Excellency, the Minister of Transport was directed to coordinate activities with the transport operators to make sure that the COVID-19 will combat or will reduce the spread of this disease through our bus terminals. Like the Minister said, public transport system in this country, we all know what it is. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. So we need to carry out the instruction from the health experts, because this is health issue, it is not a transport matter. So though the transport operators themselves had already started implementing some of these directives on their bus terminal, we thought it wise that we needed to meet them and come out to common structure, because many a time, if you are implementing government policy or directive, I think it is better that we get a buy-in of the people involved. So that's exactly what we. So yesterday, we met the transport operators, and like I said, we all came to a conclusion that this is a health issue, and one, we need to adopt the Ministry of Health directive of continual washing of hands of various bus terminals. Commercial operators or the transport operators need to provide adequate running water with soap. And how do you call it? What bucket? You said? Veronica bucket. They have to put the water in it to make sure that with soap for them to wash their hands. Provide sanitizers at their loading terminals for use by their drivers and passengers. Correct information on passengers boarding buses at various lorry terminals. This one will enable us to trace, but if there's a need for us to do some tracing, it will be simpler for us to do that. Provide sanitizers in their vehicles and ensure their usages by the drivers and passengers. Open the windows of air-conditioned buses to allow for natural air circulation at all times. Wash the external and internal part of their vehicle thoroughly with soap, detergent before loading. Spray inside the vehicle with Ministry of Health approved spraying materials before and after every journey. Avoid overloading, standing passengers, and as much as possible, try and see if we can maintain the social distance measures that we are putting in place. I think we all know it's difficult, but we try as much as possible to see how we can achieve that directive. The public address system at their loading terminals to constantly inform and educate their drivers and passengers on COVID-19 infection preventive measures issued by the Ministry of Health. And here, the transport operators themselves had requested that we need to help them to secure or provide them with more messages on pen drive, so that instead of them playing music in their cars, from now going, they are going to play these messages in their buses, vehicle, whatever machine they are using, to send home the message to the people. So I'm appealing to the passengers that maybe from today going, when you sit in buses from here to Kumasi or Akimoda, you tell your people that they will not be listening to music or watching films, but they will be hearing messages by prominent Ghanaian people, or the Ministry for Information is providing us with that message. And we'll be sending them to all transport operators. They'll be sharing to their drivers, and they'll be playing it in the buses, the vehicles throughout. All commercial vehicles are advised to load at designated bus terminals. And we also entreated passengers that please as much as possible, instead of you to stand by the roadside and board vehicle or buses, please go to bus terminals and board a bus from there. If you go there, you get water to wash your hands, you have sanitizer, your information will be taken. In case there's an emergency, we can easily trace you and follow up. And if it is that we need to do something, then we can do it for you. Numbers was also provided for them. The commercial operators, transport operators themselves came out with a directive, and I think they are going to enforce it with the support from the ministry, that henceforth, any driver who fails to carry out these instructions will not be allowed to load at the bus terminals. These measures, ladies and gentlemen, remain until otherwise advised, and we came out with a strategy that we are going to review this policy or directive every 2 days. If it is that we meet tomorrow and we think that it's important that we need to meet every day or day-by-day basis, we will do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, maybe on Friday, the ministry themselves will try to donate some few items to the transport operators just to support them for the good work that they are doing. I know that this is a directive, it's a policy. We do not intend to achieve 100% result by today. That is the reason why we are here today, to let you know what we are doing. And continuously, we are going to review it. If we review it and we think that we need to scale it up, we will do it. So for the meantime, that is where we are. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Honourable Minister, thank you for that update on the transport sector. Colleagues, just some 2 quick updates, and then I'll give you some general notes from the government. The Minister responsible for education, the Honourable Matthew Poku-Prempeh, has also been working through the GES and other organs to get the educational system, in collaboration with the Minister for Communications, working with them to get the educational system to fully respond to the President's directives on ensuring that schools are shut down except for those writing examinations, and distance learning platforms are made available. Hopefully on Sunday, at our Sunday brief, he will join us to give an update on where they have reached. The Honourable Health Minister was to join us today, but currently he's been summoned back to the Jubilee House. He's joining the President to meet captains of industry as we speak to you right here, right now. Earlier this week, the President met the pharmaceutical group, those who produce hand sanitizers and medicines, etc., on how they can produce local items to support the fight. But it has become necessary to broaden that bracket a little bit. And so as I speak to you now, the Minister for Trade, Minister for Health, His Excellency the President, and captains of industry are in that meeting at the Jubilee House as part of the COVID-19 response and other related matters. Now, the permanent mission of the People's Republic of China to the United Nations has also been engaging the world through the UN and sharing lessons from China on how they conquered it. One of the key lessons is early detection, which is what we've put in a system to do here in Ghana, early reporting, which is again what we've done here in Ghana, including online platforms for everybody to be aware of, early isolation. As you know, even the first 7 cases being treated in isolation, and then those who've been contact traced being put in self-isolation while the monitoring goes on, as well as persons coming within the jurisdiction who will not be mandatorily quarantined by the state being supported to do the self-quarantine. The other very important part of what the Chinese government is sharing with the world is mobilizing the general public, And that is why we are pleased that you are all assisting us to mobilize the general public, because awareness is one of the most important tools to fight this. The government of Ghana expresses its appreciation to all at this stage, in particular faith-based groups and their leadership, frontline health workers, the media, and allied groups for the compliance so far exhibited and the support in public education. In particular, we thank the Ghana Charismatic Bishops, the Christian Council of Ghana, the National Association of Charismatic and Christian Churches, the Pentecostal churches, the Orthodox churches, the Office of the National Chief Imam, and the entire Muslim community for their observation of these restrictions that have been introduced. We also thank the Ghana Journalists Association, President Afomoni and team, and journalists across the country for your support. We thank the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, particularly for the programming support that you are giving across the country, for all the programs that you are doing to help us mobilize the general public to be aware and to respond accordingly. We, however, encourage adherence to Ghana Health Service communication materials to avoid any scenarios of people sharing unreliable information, particularly from the internet. Please use the Ghana Health Service materials when you are communicating or educating the public. We also thank the medical groups, the Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, the Pharmaceutical Society and producers of pharmaceutical products for the resource persons that they are providing in helping this exercise. Now, here's a very important point that I would like to make. Please pay attention to it. The health experts tell us that the next 2 weeks are critical in determining whether or not we will get significant community spread. They tell us that the general theory in pandemic management is that often it is likely that the numbers go up a bit before the curve or the situation gets better. Therefore, they are bracing for the possibility of some limited recordings of more cases in the medium term, but they continue to assure us that the systems they are putting together and continuing to ramp up are such that they will be able, hopefully, to contain it and ensure that we hold this virus in check. I think if you follow some of the graphs that have been shared by the WHO, usually it's a bell-shaped curve. It's a bell-shaped curve. And the challenge really is how quickly you can arrest it. And so the systems they are putting in place are not to say that they don't expect to see any more. That's our hope, that's our wish. But the work they are doing is to ensure that should we even have any, they can hopefully very quickly arrest it. And that's an important bit of information to put out there. We continue to remind all stakeholders to repeat the messages on preventive etiquette. We continue to admonish service providers not to profiteer with their goods and services at this time. We continue to remind the average Ghanaian that we should be each other's keeper now more than ever. Now, final matter on legislation before Parliament. With the leave of the Speaker of Parliament, hopefully today, the new piece of legislation required to support some of these measures should be laid before Parliament. As at the time I was leaving Parliament, Parliament was on a quick break to resume, I think, around 4 o'clock. And our expectation is that it will be laid by the Honorable Attorney General before Parliament, hopefully today. Now, it will seek to give powers to restrict the freedoms under Article 21, which by the Constitution, according to Clause 4, Subclause 1, C, D, and E, can be restricted by law. And so for those of you who have correspondence in Parliament, I'm sure they will follow and share the details, the actual text, but that is headed there. We're also expecting that the executive instrument, as has been drafted now, will be gazetted as soon as possible. Colleagues, these are the details of the briefs that we have for you on COVID-19. If you have questions, it's a good time to take your questions now. And I'll invite the various officers here to assist me to respond to your questions as best as we can. As best as we can. Can we have the microphone stand here? Yes, with it. We encourage you not to touch our microphone when you're asking your question.
These are live visuals coming to you from the Ministry for Information. You've just heard the Minister for Information, the Ministry of Information. You've just heard the Minister for Information, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, speaking there. Now, I'll tell you the parting words that he had. He's talking about what the experts are saying. Now, the experts are saying that the next 2 weeks are critical to significant changes in the records that we have here in Ghana. What he's saying is that it is possible that the numbers will go up before the situation gets better. Let's listen to the questions right now.
Thank you. My name is Alice from JoyNews. My first question on the money provided by the President. On Sunday when we had the President, he said $100 million, the CD equivalent, has been made available by the Finance Minister to help deal with this. Yesterday, when he appeared before Parliament, he was silent on the matter until the minority leader asked a question, a specific question on it. His deputy, Mr. Wine, then mentioned that they're applying for some of the monies from the World Bank and also the IMF. We want to know if the $100 million is available and how much of it has been expended. Secondly, on the issue of the case recorded at Obuasi, do we know how many of his colleagues, is that information that can be shared, were affected, and how many have been in quarantine? And on the issue of quarantine, we got reports from what we suspect is the victim of the 7th case, which was updated on the website yesterday, that he actually volunteered to be tested. He had returned from France. He was showing symptoms, went to the Rage Hospital to be tested. He was then asked to go home because the results would be communicated to him. Now, we are getting information from people very close to him that he actually heard the news on the radio. He thought that could be him. He made his checks and he was right. His problem is that between the period of testing and being asked to go home, anything could have happened. So, I mean, can the Ghana Health Service confirm this? And what is the protocol? If you, for instance, submit yourself for the testing process, and if you have to do self-isolation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Kojo and I work with City News. My concern will be the ongoing registration of the national identification cards, Ghana cards. People are crowded at places and they are still registering. I believe in the wake of the virus, government should direct the NIA to hold on with the registration. And then secondly, in the wake of allaying fears of Ghanaians, I believe they should tell us positive cases. Those 7 who have been tested positive, how many of them are recovering and how many are still being monitored? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take another 2. Yes, Echo, please move forward. And then I'll come to you. Is there another hand? And the gentleman at the back there before we take responses.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. When you met us the other time, you told us that the ISD was going to dispatch some mobile vans to educate the masses of the people across the country. We don't know how, because if you listen to people, what they say, oh, as we Ghana, we are a Christian country, so the disease cannot kill anybody here. It means people are very ignorant. So what the level of education that has gone down?
How far have we gone with our education?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second question, can the government decree or maybe make a law that every vantage point in the country, there should be a hand sanitizer, washing basin or whatever it is, so that people may wash up? Because I went to some places today, a bank, I will not mention the name.
And people were not complying.
Is that not that there was no, whatever it is? And then my third question, Honorable Minister, should there be an escalation? What package will the government give the people of Ghana?
What package will the government give the people of Ghana?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Echo.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Echo from Bloomberg. Honorable, quickly, what steps are you taking to curb some religious, I don't want to use the word fanatics, but people who want to make so much religious actions out of it? There was a video that, I call it a joke, though somebody says he has an anointing oil that could cure this virus. If we are arresting people who are still gathering in defiance of the law, do such people also fall within such thing? Because then they propagate it worse. Now, my second issue has to do with a comment you passed. You said that your medicals are saying that it can limited get worse before it gets better, or can I have a better clarity?
I can repeat the text for you.
I'll be happy, please.
But that way you can play back because it's there.
No, I want to take that.
I hear you.
And,
Let me.
And then for the immigration,
Yeah.
does it mean that all the 23 Chinese I'm told, were they all refused disembarkation, or some actually did?
They were all refused disembarkation. Yes. Okay, so they embarked, but they were refused entry into Ghana.
What does it mean? So are they gone back? Or
Yes, they are gone back. Okay. So let's quickly respond because there are many other questions. What package will be given to Ghanaians should we have an escalation? All of these matters are fluid as they move. The President has been chairing the meetings of the Interministerial Committee on COVID-19 response. and the various scenarios are being drawn up. I think yesterday there was a scenario in terms of food supply and food security that was being examined, etc. The various scenarios are continuously examined with various propositions on the table, and as the President has said, it's all subject to review as time goes along. So I think what we want to do now is to focus on what we are doing now and allow those who are doing the various scenario plannings to do so, should it become necessary that any of those are activated to change the current instructions that have been given. I'm sure we'll all be informed. Can we enact laws to compel people to provide some of these preventive things? Thankfully, the law is hopefully before Parliament by now. It's a good time for us to speak to our members of Parliament and encourage them. Whatever amendments we think should be made will be a good time to do. It's Honourable Pius here in the auditorium or outside. He can best respond to the ISD campaign question. He's been in charge of all of that. I have answers, but I'd really like him to speak up to that one. In terms of the status of the 7 persons, I think Dr. Bidusa Akodie mentioned that they are stable and are responding to treatment. All 7, stable and responding to treatment. I think so. The NIA registration, you have given us a suggestion that you believe it should be treated in a particular way. We hear you. Your suggestion is noted. Now, there is a claim that the 7th case was not contacted directly, and somebody says he believes it was him and later was confirmed to be him. We'll take it under advisement and ask our colleagues to do a quick validation if that claim indeed is true. In Obuasi, how many have been asked to self-isolate? I don't know if those handling contact tracing are able to give us an answer. About 30. About 30 persons in Obuasi have been asked to self-isolate. The $100 million CD equivalent. The Honourable Minister for Finance will provide some further and better particulars on his answers to Parliament yesterday. I think for us, the big subject we are excited and interested in is the fact that as we run an executive presidency, His Excellency the President has instructed that $100 million CD equivalent should be made available for all of these efforts. It is well within the capabilities of the Minister responsible for Finance to tap into various sources and avail them. But the work has already started, and I'm sure those invoices will be submitted to the Treasury in due course. Religious groups that may still be defying, you've noticed that the police have started enforcing some, but specifically those who are making claims that we think will be harmful to the public health concerns. We are working through the Minister for Religious Affairs to quickly do some deeper engagement with them to try and bring some of those to a stop so that we don't need to clamp down forcefully on those. Honourable Pius, there's a quick question about the ISD campaign and the work that you have done there so far and how far it's going. If you can join us with the ISD Director quickly to give us an update.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The ISD has begun serious preparations towards the national campaign. Yesterday, there was a training of trainers for all regional directors of all the 16 regions. They are going to start their decentralized regional trainings by Friday. We expect that by Monday they should have been deployed. We are working with the Honourable Minister for Local Government to also assist with some of the logistics of some of the decentralized agencies and other agencies, such as the decentralized agency of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Education Ministry, and all of those to pull in logistics such as vehicles in those areas that some of our logistics are not in the best of shapes right now. But we are very much on top of the campaign. The materials, the contents have been developed with the Ghana Health Service. It has gone through the process of verification. Several thousands, hundreds of thousands of copies of educational materials have been printed and delivered. We have taken custody of those materials. They have been dispatched into the regions, and from Monday should be available to for distribution.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Reko is the Director of the Information Services Department. He's supporting Honourable Pius Hajide on the public education campaign. Let's take a second batch of questions. I have 1, 2. I'll take you first. Star FM 3, 4. I'll take you 5, and then 6. Chief, I thought you had a bite earlier. No. But don't worry. Let me take these 6 and then I'll come back. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Nyako Perez, Akukraba Kasapa FM. Honorable, for the purpose of my listeners, I would like to speak to you.
Please feel free.
The Uroba Kwayana Yabo Efa coronavirus won't say, young bomb MP so said a amount for intimate NAV. Now, and they uti announcement pono ukopimo one with fear a prisons. I would do or hence some prisons here. Nipa won 3,500. Just a more piece yepa. As you said, Baina Bino Ediguaquam said a bit to me, Abua, Ama, one more and the fear, nothing upon the prisons, you know. Omunkonya ya didn't be uncle a copase, obi enyebia, and go affect or more in let us say.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Godra Tamisa from Ghana News Agency. Per the advice you have heard from health experts that we should take in more of vitamin C to strengthen our immune system. I've also heard people banding information around that we should take in more alkaline and food like avocado, dandelion, and all those things, lime, orange, all those things can help strengthen our immune system.
What to eat at this time?
Yes, so if they can give us
like a comment on that. Okay.
Yeah, and then two, the transport minister talked about transport operators collecting passengers' information before boarding vehicles. I want to find whether it's for short distance vehicles or only for long distance vehicles, because currently the tow drivers are not taking such information. So I want to find out whether it's for long distance buses or the short ones. Then regarding online taxis like Uber, Bolt, and all those things, they don't need you to go to a transport terminal to board it. You just make a request and get it. How are you cooperating with them to also comply with the directive? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next two, as I pointed out, Star, and then yes, you. Kojoba, I thought you had a bite earlier. Oh, I answered the question, but I didn't like it. Well, if I heard you well, you said you believe that this is how it should be handled. And I said, we take it in good faith. We take your belief in good faith. Let's hear other people. Kojo, yes, sir.
Okay, so Eric Mawena with Star FM. I think I'll just take off from where he left off with the question regarding the NI, because we know that the president strongly advised against social gathering and asked for social distancing, amongst other things. We know the Ghana Medical Association has issued a statement, and they are advising, if possible, that the registration do not continue. Looking at the directives that was given by the president, does government still think that the decision by the NIA to go on with registration is the best, based on the directives that were given by the president? So I'll move on to my questions. The 7 persons who are being treated, we know they are responding to treatment. Can we know where exactly they are being treated? Because we know they are designated areas, Tema, and then the Ridge. Are those the areas these individuals are being treated? And I asked that because yesterday we spoke to Dr. Fred Binka, Professor Fred Binka, and he says that these centers that have been created, Tema and Ridge, there aren't enough beds. According to him, he says there were just 17 beds. He spoke to us yesterday, and so I just want that understanding as well. And so
then, I think really what you are looking for is whether or not we have enough beds or places to treat persons who have complications that require hospitalization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And where these individuals are being treated, because these centers were designated for that purpose. And so is it serving that purpose right now with these 7 persons? Another question, when you
very quickly,
addressed us earlier, you said health experts said we should expect more cases. We know yesterday in the United States alone...
No, I didn't say they said we should expect more cases.
I
said there's a general theory of pandemic management, which says that often the numbers go up a bit before it comes down.
And so there's a likelihood, I am inferring, not you, I am inferring that there's a likelihood there will be more cases. Yeah. We know yesterday in the United States, 1,000 more cases were added because there's been a room that's been expanded for testing. Are we considering that voluntary testing bit? Because there's a
change in testing protocols,
perception that if we don't test, we can't confirm. And so are we considering that? And then there's rumors circulating.
I have to give other people an opportunity. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please come. You've done about 4 questions already, so let me hear a few others. Yes, sir.
My name is Yalprekon. I work with Akifa TV. I'd like to speak to you.
Pacho Kachi.
The Kakabekan Wana may share in prisons ahodoɔ a ɛwɔ ɔman yi mu. Mpɛ na bebree na obi kan sɛ bebree na abɔ apɛ so. But now so me kyerɛ sɛ so obi wɔ hɔ na sɛ ne bɔne no nhyɛ da nyɛ bɔne bi atitiri bi a yɛntumi mfiri ma ɔno nyɛ congested kakra na. And I feel so your passport office all those are online. But to go submit here, we say we go to pardon omuko submit here. And also then now you have for meeting. Okay. I heard say we be able to try you.
Okay. Let me take two more. If you give me a suggestion, I'll take your suggestion. But if you ask a question, we'll give you an answer. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please. And then, madam, I had called you. Chief, I'm sorry I hadn't called you out. I called the lady there. Yes. Yes, sir. And then we'll respond to these ones and come to a final batch. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Okay.
Honorable, good evening. Your friend Pokumi for Kingdom FM. The first question here, Indra, Ghanaian Times newspaper. On the story by my page 18, say there's alleged patient new or tema. Alleged coronavirus patient. That's what they. But call Honor testing or Mukas one now na yen for some time now. Or say Hoyashint one town will be on the coin. That's what the story said. Page 18 in Ra. Till I'm able page na my you to be me home from Ghana Health Service home pinning for if we are aware of this information if we Ghanaian Times or banana. And I in Ra too any persons with disability for Sweden Komokakra. No much say if you who born almost more born in as for now. Mama so NTS no more no. Almost so I say information be home and cover almost. And so then I'm way fast out for
Madam, let's hear you and then we'll respond. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sandra Ofusuda Onu, ATVGN TV, Channel 7 in the UK. My concern has to do with our public transport, intra-public transport, especially the trotros. Now, the trotros are very unofficial gathering places, and it's usually seen in the way the trotros are maintained, the inside of the trotros kept, even how the drivers, conductors, and the drivers themselves dress and all of that. Are there any mechanisms whereby passengers can actually report some misconducts which may be observed on trotros? GAPTI came up with a number of 55 that they are maintaining on their Yalolo buses. How can you regulate the number of passengers on trotros?
Okay. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister for Transport will join me. Is there a consideration to standardize the numbers on public transport vehicles? Would you consider that? Persons with disability, Information Ministry has say into any one develop communication materials no juma require betumi afa so yadani mu na aso wo. There's a report about or somebody who attended a health facility and is alleged to have been a potential patient and said the place was too warm and left. It will be difficult to have any information on that at this point in time. We continue to generally tell the public that if you have conditions, please report to a health facility. A clinician will see you, take a sample, which will be tested, and then whatever the outcome is, we will do well to engage with you and ensure that if indeed you are positive, you get the treatment that that person has already provided basic data as part of the card formalities. Then it will be possible to trace that person and bring that person in for some assistance. Ghana Health Service, are you considering changing the testing protocols to allow for voluntary testing, etc.? Those are the two questions that I'll come to. There was a question about 7 treated. Exactly where are they? I'm not sure we're going to go into exactly where they are, but I think the real question that is being asked, which I think is a very valid question, is do you have enough beds, whether in one place or different places, to take care of hospitalized or severe considerations? Now, here's a specific question about the National Identification Authority, that the GMA has issued an advice. That advice will be considered. There's also a question about whether or not it qualifies as a social gathering. That has been put out. I think if you read clearly what was put out, social gatherings have been suspended. Other activities, including business and other activities, are allowed to continue, but with the social distancing of not more than 25 persons widely spread that is operating. Our understanding is that that is what the NIA is doing currently, but it is good to receive this advice from the Ghana Medical Association I'm sure as the President continues reviewing all of the methods that have been put in place, it's advice that will be considered. Transport Minister, you would please add to it how you're engaging with Uber and Yango and all of those. And then public health, are there any directives on what people should eat at this point in time? The final one I'll respond to is congestion in the prison. So yesterday, the Minister for the Interior, as part of the new instructions that the President gave, was asked to consider that suggestion as it's coming up and submit a paper to the Interministerial Committee, either the committee or to Cabinet on Thursday, for advice to be taken and a decision made on that accordingly. So Ghana Health Service, please join me and let's take your questions and then I'll take transport.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We'll take the issue of the persons with disability. I think that has already been answered. We are working. Change in testing protocol. The current protocol is that for those who are exhibiting symptoms or meet the case definition of suspected cases are tested. We may consider in due course whether we'll do some for high-risk groups. Also, those who are contacts with significant contact among those cases are also tested. But we continue reviewing the process. Some countries are doing testing. Where we reach the stage where we think there's a certain group, this is more of surveillance testing, we will start testing them. What do you eat? Well, I think the issue is how do you improve your immunity to be able to withstand the disease? We are saying rest, sleep enough, eat well, and avoid stress. And that is what will boost your immunity to be able to withstand the disease, should you get one. Where are the people? I think there's something I want to respond to. That is the issue of where there's a case of Tema General Hospital, and I think we must clarify that. Someone assumed that the case in Tema is at the treatment center. So when they went there and the patient was not there, they assumed that the patient has absconded. For mild conditions with adequate space at home, such cases are managed in their homes, and that's what is happening. So nobody has absconded. Thank you very much.
There's a question about do you have enough beds for
yes.
people who get hospitalized? Do you have enough beds?
Yes, we have enough beds. See, apart from the centers here, we have centers across the regions, the teaching hospitals, some regional hospitals. And this is not Ebola, where you have to discard everything that the person has used. So as long as you have a general isolated ward, they can be used to manage those cases. So I don't think we have any challenge with that. Thank you.
Transport Minister, how are you engaging with the online transport organizations?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Someone asked that the Uber drivers, how are we engaging them? I know that anyone who boards Uber, the Uber driver may have your information. So the Uber, in dealing with the Uber and their passengers, I don't think that we have a much of a problem there. In this country, 90% of public transport systems are being operated by the private sector. Only 10% are by government institutions. So in dealing with unregulated, let me use that word, system, it is going to be difficult in coming out with a bank and say that I'll be able to deal with all the issues. I think it would be very dishonest on my part to say that all the problems concerning the truck drivers and other things have been solved by meeting the transport operators only yesterday. What we are hoping to achieve is that after you've met them yesterday, we set out ourselves to review the measures you put in place. That's why, if you heard me rightly, I said that when we met, we came out with a decision, and they are implementing that. Once we load and we come back to a bus terminal, we must wash it. And we are going to have inspectors between National Road Safety, or now they have authority, they have inspectors, in collaboration with the transport operators themselves, to make sure that the hygienic condition or the hygienic instruction being given to her by MOH are being followed. So we are going to review the system as you put in place, and day in, day out. If it is that we need to escalate some of these measures, we will do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a final batch of questions, and then we will wrap up. Ernest, I saw your hand already, so let me take some of those who haven't asked questions. Madam, you haven't asked a question. Please come forward. Yes, sir. Please step forward. I think I stopped you. Are there any new persons who want to ask questions? No, if not, then I'll go back to Ernest, to Star FM, and then to a call. And then we'll wrap up for today. Yes, madam. Please wait and let these leave the podium and then you come in. Yes, madam.
Which obviously is difficult to adhere to in our public transport, etc. I would want to find out from the health experts here, what would they advise that in a situation where we cannot adhere to social distancing, what can we do to protect ourselves as much as possible?
Any alternative to social distancing, particularly on transport, the health people? Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Minister. My name is Bismarck Okon from Radio.com. My question goes to the Ghana Health Service. Yeah. Can the poor and vulnerable in our society use apetishi as hand sanitizers? If yes, how effective is it in combating the COVID-19? And then my second question goes to the local government minister. Honorable Minister, respectfully, is there any advice to parents while most students and kids are home now? An advice to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because the fact that the kids are home doesn't mean they can still be doing everything business as usual. Ernest, let's hear you.
Yes, I asked a question earlier about self-isolation. What do you do when you've been asked to self-isolate? And that's to the Ghana Health Service. Now, to the
we'll give you copies of their guidelines.
Very well. To the Immigration Service, for those Ghanaians that have been allowed into the country despite the ban, how do we ensure that they actually self-quarantine when they are in finally? Yeah.
Okay.
And on the case of the seventh case, which I talked about, the we understand that the person was picked up later today. Again, the Ghana Health Service has not confirmed whether or not this is true. Thank you.
Okay. I think the answer I gave to that is that we will refer to them for them to do an investigation and confirm to us. Yes,
Honorable, thank you very much for another opportunity. As this thing evolved, is there scope for what I may call an approved system of some measure of treatment that can help reduce, for lack of a better term, that the viral load a person has? There's a school of thought that, this local sauna that we had, a case in point, my grandmother would just prepare some hot water, put some neem tree in it.
Is it true that local remedies work?
Exactly. If you have any recommended ones that could help reduce the viral load in the system.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'll give you the final question. Chief, you have a question, please come up. You'll be our last person.
Okay, Honorable, a question to the immigration person and then the Ghana Health Service. So since the issuance of the travel advisory, have persons from the over 200 countries, any person, I'm asking this question because on our show this morning, the host Francis Aban, based on sources, got information that some persons from the Philippines, France, and the likes had been allowed into the country. Put this to Dr. Bedu Sarkodie, and they said they were going to cross-check, and so we just want that.
So you want to know whether any persons have done what?
The over 200 countries that have been red flagged, if I can call it that, and are not supposed to enter the country. If anybody of such has entered the country, because we've picked some signals that something like that has happened, and Dr. Bedu Sarkodie said they were going to cross-check. Also, we know Jack Ma is making some donations to African continent in terms of testing kits and the like. Has government made any contact with him? Because we will need most of these items to help in the testing should the protocols in testing change. And so have we made any contact? And then finally, on the bit of celebrities, there are rumors that government is considering getting some celebrities on board to propagate education on COVID-19. Is this the case, and do we need celebrities to do that?
Okay, let's take your question, sir.
Well, my name is George Mensah France, currently a freelance journalist. Let me start by commending His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for showing leadership in the midst of the global pandemic by not yielding to the pressure from other quarters to evacuate Ghanaians from China, and that the president stood his ground by making sure.
So what's your question, sir?
So
what's your question?
That's my first question. And then secondly,
Colleagues, you in the media always say we should respect the freedom of the media. Respect his freedom. We want to hear his question. Yeah. Question, please.
Okay. My question goes to the Honorable Minister for Transport. I want to know how hard his ministry will go in dealing with those transport operators who flout the orders of the ministry, because it's a known fact that there's too much indiscipline at the transport.
So how far will you go with recalcitrant drivers?
Yeah, in dealing with them. But once again, let me commend the president.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're running out of time. We want to give answers as quickly as possible. Do I have your attention, colleagues? Do I have your attention, ladies and gentlemen? Do I have your attention? We want to respond as quickly as possible. No, government doesn't intend to pay any celebrities to go out there and become ambassadors for COVID-19. We don't intend to pay any celebrities to go out there and become ambassadors for COVID-19. I think I mentioned in our meeting with the GJA, NMC, GIBA, etc., that we're also thinking of having persons with large following share our messages. And I think the expression I used, that we were thinking of having them as public education ambassadors or public education champions. I later saw online stories that we have said we are going to use celebrity ambassadors and suggestions that we're going to pay them some money. No, that is not happening. So thanks for the opportunity even to clarify that. The Office of the President has assigned somebody to engage with the Jack Ma Foundation. I think yesterday was one of the key issues when it came to the logistics conversation. And I'm sure as we go by, if we have some more details, we will do well to provide those details to you. Have any persons that should not be allowed into the jurisdiction been allowed into the jurisdiction? Deputy Comptroller General, have any such persons come to the jurisdiction? I think it's a yes or no question, very simply. Please come forward and then give us that detail. Any persons who should not come into the jurisdiction, have any of them come into the jurisdiction?
Yes, Honorable Minister, the travel ban kicked in at 1 p.m. yesterday. So any person who would arrive from any such country before that time would be admitted. 9 Filipinos who were in transit, they are seamen, joining their ship in Tema. Under these circumstances, were allowed in, under the law. Were allowed in to join their ship. But we took the precaution of notifying our other sister intelligence agencies to monitor them in transit, so that if there's any issue, they can be treated. Yes, and quarantined. Yes.
So it is important to clarify.
Yes.
Did they come generally into the Ghanaian jurisdiction, or they were held for a period and possibly escorted onto their ships, or what?
They were.
You should give us that detail so
yes.
that there are no gaps. Yeah.
They were held and escorted. That is what we do for transit passengers in such groups. Yes. And again, the Ghana Health Service also are monitoring them in isolation.
So
we are working.
Are they currently in isolation, or they've been taken onto their ships?
They are currently in isolation. Their ship arrives tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So again, just so that we are not misquoted, I need you to be very clear with it. They were allowed into the jurisdiction. They
yes.
are currently under quarantine.
Yes. They arrive before 1 p.m.
And then they are under quarantine. Their ship arrives when?
Tomorrow.
And when it does, what will happen? They'll
be escorted aboard.
Colleagues, I'm sure you got that explanation clearly. Yeah, so that we don't have a doubt. I think that'll be it, unless there's something else you want to add.
Yes, we wanted to be sure about what we are doing in the Ghana Health. We want to say that we are collaborating very closely with the Ghana Health Service. In fact, with all the Ghanaians that come in, their records are taken and shared with the Ghana Health Service. Every contact person in our line, the officers who have handled them, have all been identified, and they are all being managed by the Ghana Health Service. Again, we are applying Section 8 of our law strictly, that any person who refuses to comply with the directive of the health officials at the entry points commits an offense. And the penalty is a fine, imprisonment, or both. And we're going to enforce that strictly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Comptroller General. I think we're coming to the end. Hajia, you want to help us with some advice to parents, especially now that children are at home? And then I'll go to Transport and to Health Service.
The children have been sent home to ensure that they are not within crowded situations. Parents, therefore, need to protect their children. They should keep them safe. They should not put them out there in crowded situations. For example, if you are a trader in the market, you should not send these children to trade in the market because they are crowded places. So far, we have had good cooperation from the market women. The MMDs all report that when they go for their sensitization program, the market women even join them to also give us some messages in the local language. So they are very helpful, they are very cooperative. But I will also want to advise and to emphasize that the children have been sent home to ensure that they are not in crowded situations, they are kept healthy, and they are kind of protected at home. So parents should not expose them. And I'm just giving an example. They should not be sent out to be trading, carrying wares. They should not be sent to the market to sit and trade. They should protect the children. That's what government has done. We feel that in school, they are in crowded situations. They should be at home and be protected. And every parent, I believe, love their children. Protect your children, keep them healthy and strong, and get them back to school when schools are open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Transport Minister, is there any alternative to social distancing on trotros? And then at the same time, how far will you go with recalcitrant drivers?
Thank you very much. I think from the health expert point of view, once you clean your vehicles or your buses, you clean the seat with detergent and alcohol-based substance, and there's no direct contact, then we are reducing the issue of social contacting. We are achieving the result that we are seeking to achieve. When it comes in terms of punishment for recalcitrant drivers, I think that I said it here, that we are dealing with transport operators. That's why we are asking that every trotro or bus should load from a bus terminal. And yesterday when we met, the decision was that anybody who does not go by the rules will not be allowed to load. Apart from that, there are laws in this country. And when we review the measures we put in place, and when the time we need to escalate some of these things, we will do it. So for now, let's confine ourselves to the decision that we've taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My favorite question, Ghana Health Service. Does the appetition story work? How about the stories of local remedies like neem tree leaves with cloth over you and, inhaling? Maybe it's a new cure. Who knows?
Thank you very much. I'm sure with the traditional ones, whoever has it can share with us. You need to do some trial to ensure that it actually works. But for now, we don't have any one so far. For the alcohol rub, we need a minimum of 65 to 70% alcohol. And so apotheosis is about 45%. In fact, maximum. Usually it's about 40%. So obviously, apotheosis cannot be the solution. So please, don't delude yourself that apotheosis will help you. Thank you very much. It's not the one that you light. That one is not for sale. That one they don't sell. It's for listen. So that one is not the one. With apotheosis, that is common to available to all. It's maximum 45%, regularly about 40%, just like the gin. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, as we come down, or as we wind down our engagement this afternoon, this evening, two things I'd like to say. One was not asked as a question, but I need to address it. There are those who, even in these very trying times, take delight in fabricating stories and throwing them out there on social media, sometimes for political purposes, sometimes for mere humor. We like to discourage that as much as possible. There are stories that are going around suggesting that the president and some ministers have tested positive. I'm sure you have seen it on social media. It is not true. It is not true. We like to encourage that if you have access to a platform, let's use it to encourage compliance with the preventive etiquette so that we can save as many lives as possible. Wash your hands with soap under running water intermittently. If you have access to an alcohol-based hand sanitizer, please do well to use that as well. If you have to cough and you have a tissue around, use it and put it in an enclosed bin. And if for any reason you are having a high temperature, you are having a cough and you are sneezing, and you are observing any of the symptoms that we have spoken about, please do well to call the numbers that we have been putting out on the mass communication platforms. On Sunday, we will do well to invite you for an update on where we are. But every 6 hours, as we said, if there is any change to the case count, contact tracing, and case management, you'll find it on the website, GhanaHealthService.org/COVID-19/. Want to thank all our key stakeholders who've been with us here, from the Ghana Health Service, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Local Government, from the Ghana Immigration Service, from the media, Registered Nurses Association, and even all those that I couldn't mention. We thank you. We continue to encourage you to comply with the reporting protocols that we have all come to, so that we can ensure that Ghanaians get the facts and the truth and are well protected. Thank you all for being with us this evening.
Those are live visuals coming to you from the Ministry of Information. Kojo Oponkrumah is the Minister for Information, addressing the journalist who gathered there. Of course, this is our extended version of our programming. We brought you the update from there. Well, he talks about, before he went to the questions, he talked about the fact that if you look at the trend of the theory of pandemic management, experts are saying that the next 2 weeks are critical to any significant changes that could occur as far as the records that we have are concerned. He's talking about the fact that numbers could go up a bit before the situation gets better. In fact, that's the theory of pandemic management, and they're saying that in that case there is a possibility of more cases, but the health experts say they are putting in place systems to deal with what he calls the bell-shaped curve, which means it goes up and then it goes down, what is something to be expected. He also asked people who are selling these things, these essential items, to stop profiteering, but to be there for each other. He talked about the legislation, the emergency legislation that President Akufo-Addo has triggered. We're expecting the Attorney General to be laying it in Parliament by now, but Israel, I will bring you more of that when Joseph Opoku-Gakpo crosses over with that information. We're expecting that it will be laid, according to the Minister of Information, today. And then it talks about the restrictions of freedoms under Article 21. Those are things that the legislation is meant to do. And then he talks again, he brings in the ministers, the various ministers, to talk about their sectors and what is happening there. But interesting trend we're also witnessing is the number of people who are coming in who are not supposed to be in, who are then being turned away. The Deputy Immigration Boss was there to list a number of these people. He talked about Air France flights that came with 2 Italians, and those Italians were turned back. They were sent back to their country. 24 Chinese also were refused entry. 1 German was refused entry as well yesterday, and he said today there was a problem in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, which has also some cases there. He says that they were diverted to Ghana, but all of them were refused landing. They refueled, some of them refueled, and they went back, especially Ethiopian Airline. It was not allowed to disembark. They were coming in, they were not allowed to disembark, but then they were allowed to refuel and go back. He says that there's been a drastic drop in the number of passengers that are coming in, and then he goes on to list the list the airlines and the numbers that they usually bring in and how drastically those have been reduced. He talked about the land borders and what is happening at the land borders as well. He says we have 45 land borders, and out of that, Aplao, Lubo, and Paga are one of 3 of the main ones that we have. He says Aplao refused entry to a Nigerian because in their initial investigation, this Nigerian had traveled from Korea to Nigeria, and then from Nigeria he was making his way into Ghana. He was stopped at the Aplao border. 3 more were stopped at the Aplao border as well. 1 German, 2 Australians. They were all stopped at the border. And so they went on with the testing protocols, the questions that came in and all of the answers. They say that they are engaging, government is engaging the Jack Ma Foundation. And if you know that Jack Ma is the founder of the Alibaba website, he says, platform, he is donating some testing kits. He says that they are in talks with him to find out how we get those things here. And also one key issue that came up before I wrap up was the presence of Filipinos or South Filipinos who, Philippines has recorded cases, and so if we're going by the protocols listed, none of them should be allowed in here. But what we know, or what we understand happened is that those Filipinos were in the country. The immigration provides some more explanation. They say 9 Filipinos entered the country, but they were not coming into Ghana. They were in transit. They were supposed to join a ship, and the ship arrives tomorrow. What they're saying is that those 9 Filipinos are being closely monitored. They are in isolation, and they will be escorted to their ship when it arrives tomorrow. We'll bring you more analysis and more updates in our subsequent bulletins. Israel Lai will be up at 7 with Joy News Prime. There's also more news at myjoyonline.com. We'll break it down as we go along. Many thanks for your time. My name is Gifty Ando-Apia.